Hello and welcome to the Sim Racing Corner, the Logitech G923 or Thrustmaster T248, which gives you the best bang for your buck. That's what we're going to try to answer in this video. In the UK, I can get either of these wheel and pedal set bundles right now for £300. So it's an equal match on price. And it's fair to say both sport features to appeal to the same end user looking to pick up their first force feedback racing wheel. I should mention I have reviewed both the G923 and T248 in separate videos, and I would recommend you watch those as well for more depth on each product before you decide which one is best for your needs. Check the description for the links. Both products have force feedback and come with a pedal set with 3 pedals, and both are built mostly using plastic parts. Superficially, we have similar specifications in this regard, so we need to compare these features on a granular level, and that's what we're going to do and see which one comes out on top when we examine each aspect. Starting off with the Logitech G923, the aluminium spokes hold the 28cm D-shaped plastic rim covered with real stitched leather. Circled around the centre of the wheel we get a D-pad plus a selection of buttons. An LED shift light sits above the steering wheel boss. The paddle shifters are metal with spring resistance. They produce a light click when actuated. The underside of the wheelbase has a cavity where the cables plug in, plus a way to wind and store any excess wire. The table clamp is integrated into the wheelbase housing, plus there are 2 M6 threaded holes for hard mounting the G923. The pedal deck is moulded from hard plastic. The pedal arms and pedal faces are metal. Potentiometer sensors are used on all the pedals. The spring resistance is different on each pedal. The lightest is the throttle, followed by the clutch, and a much stronger progressive spring on the brake. The brake pedal becomes heavier over the course of its travel, providing resistive feedback for modulating braking input. Small rubber feet provide friction on hard floors, or you can use the M6 threaded holes for hard mounting the pedals if you have a wheel stand or sim rig. The pedals also feature a unique retractable carpet gripper. Now moving on to the Thrustmaster T248. The wheel rim is entirely plastic and measures 28cm. For comfort, the outer edge of the rim is covered with a soft foam material. The face of the wheel is equipped with many buttons along with a couple of rocker switches for a total of 21 inputs. The integrated digital display shows dashboard telemetry from the car. Gear indicator, speed, RPM, track position and lap timer are all selectable options. The paddle shifters are plastic, using magnets for resistance that gives each shift a positive snap. The T248 uses the standard Thrustmaster table clamp common to all their wheelbases. There are 2 M6 threaded screw holes for hard mounting. The cutout underneath channels the cables out the back of the wheelbase. The hexagon-shaped arrangement of holes is for cooling. There is a built-in fan for venting warm air from the motor. The Thrustmaster T3PM pedals are constructed from plastic. The pedal faces are the only visible metal parts. The pedals use non-contact magnetic sensors. This ensures durability. Two brake pedal springs are included for changing the brake pedal resistance for a stronger or lighter feel. Turning over the pedals, we find rubber feet and M6 threaded mounting holes. In a side-by-side wheelbase size comparison, the Thrustmaster T248 is the more compact unit between the two, and indeed, the Logitech G923 is a little heavier by around 270 grams. And it's also worth mentioning at this point that the T248 force feedback peak torque output is rated at about 3.5 Newton meters versus the G923 at 2.1 Newton meters. So the lighter T248 is the more powerful wheelbase. Comparing the pedals, the Thrustmaster pedals are clearly larger with a slightly wider heel plate area. But most notably, they are taller. Some of the height difference is offset by the lower scooped out heel plate section on the G923 pedals, but there still remains a significant height difference. Pedal spring tension and pedal throw are closely matched. The T248 springs are marginally stronger, and the G923 pedals, I would say, have a tiny bit more distance of travel. That concludes our quick tour around the G923 and T248. Build quality wise, there is little to choose between either. Both products are mainly constructed from plastic parts, and the materials are used well. They both feel solid. As for appearance, that's a subjective matter for you to decide. Now we're going to take them both onto the track for testing, and you'll definitely want to hear what I have to say next, as this is where the differences between these products is noticeable, and that's where it counts. So the plan is, comparing the force feedback quality between the wheels, then focus attention on the pedals, followed by the final summary with my pick. The force feedback from the game is your physical perception of the response from the car, or putting it simply, you ride a bump or curb, skid or have a collision, the force feedback responds with appropriate sensations felt through the wheel. Both wheelbases behave with force feedback effects that make sense to me. However, the T248 wheelbase motor is more powerful, and this is an advantage. With force feedback being stronger, this enables effects to have greater range of detail. For instance, while cornering, the counterforce resistance is more robust, giving me a decent feeling of the tyres loading up. Stronger force feedback communicates this information better than weaker force feedback. And for me, the T248 is doing the better job because of the extra torque, and I had confidence leaning on the force feedback from the T248 and using it as a driving aid. I generally had a good understanding of grip and stability. On the Logitech wheelbase, the effects can feel weaker than I would expect. Cornering resistance is light and sometimes resulted in oversteer, as I was anticipating higher strength counterforces, and that caused me to overdrive the car. After a few more laps of practice, I can certainly learn to work within the limits of the G923 on any car and track combination, but I have to say I didn't struggle with the T248. I found things easy to pick up right away. That's not to say the T248 is perfect. Wheel rotation is very notchy. There's an ever-present feel akin to turning a pepper grinder. This is coming from the internal combination gear and belt mechanism. The G923 rotates more smoothly, and something I do appreciate. There still remains a very light amount of notchiness, but most of the time it's not a sensation you can feel, unlike the T248 where this roughness is ever present in use. For off-road racing and drifting, you want low friction wheel rotation, and the G923 works really well here. In fact, the lower strength force feedback is no longer a disadvantage. If you're spending most of your time sliding or sideways, typically running light force feedback is the way to do it. The G923 also has a unique proprietary technology called TrueForce. Do check out my dedicated video on this, link in the description for that, guys. But briefly, TrueForce is an added vibration effect in addition to the normal force feedback. So basically you get normal force feedback, TrueForce is layered on top, so 2 for 1. The G923 motors create tiny oscillations, and this is felt as vibrations through the steering wheel. TrueForce is linked to specific effects from the game, and that is down to the developer to bake TrueForce into their title. So bear in mind, not every title will have TrueForce support. A good example of effective use of TrueForce is the 2019 release of Grid. With TrueForce deactivated, the low curves produce very little sensation from the regular force feedback. But when active, a feeling of texture from the curbs comes through the wheel with good effect. TrueForce effects can be tuned by the user for the road and engine effects, simply like using volume sliders to raise or lower the strength. TrueForce is a really good feature. You certainly miss it when it's not there, and as I said, not every game supports this, in which case you'll just be running the stock force feedback effects. It's okay if a game doesn't support TrueForce, it doesn't mean you're not going to get force feedback effects, so do bear that in mind. It just means you'll be running regular force feedback. Moving on to the pedal sets, performance wise, on the track there's nothing really to pick between them. I had an equal amount of control. The T248 uses magnetic sensors over the G923, which has potentiometers, but we are still talking about linear analog inputs for both pedal sets. But the magnetic sensors are non-contact, which should give them a longer lifespan over the potentiometers of the G923. Should that be something to worry about? Probably not. The G923 pedals are not going to fail easily, though the T248 pedals does have an advantage here. Another advantage is the swappable brake spring for adjusting tension and being a larger set of pedals, and for that I do prefer the T248 pedals. They feel nicer under my feet and more authentic compared to real pedals. Technically, nothing wrong with the G923 pedals, they do a fine job. Logitech haven't changed the overall design of the pedal since they launched back in 2006 with the G25. The only difference between now and then is we do get an improved spring in the brake, and in fairness, the design of the pedals has aged well. They are decent pedals, and why Logitech has stuck with them for such a long time. But choosing between them, for me, I'm sure most other people would also agree, the T248 pedals are the better set of pedals. Okay guys, let's wrap this up with my verdict, but I do want to repeat this message first. Do watch my full reviews for both products. In this comparison, I'm trying to condense everything and focus on core features. There's certainly things I haven't covered on both, otherwise I could easily double the length of this video, but I'm trying to kind of really keep it as short as I can, and it is long enough. So for the full lowdown on both products, check out the links in the description for those full reviews. And this is what you've been waiting for, which is best, or which I think is best at least. And if you haven't worked it out already, it is the Thrustmaster T248. It's by no means a perfect product, I'm not saying that, but it is the better one for sim racing. And what we're doing is comparing two wheelbases, two pedal sets, and that's the verdict. The advantage of the stronger force feedback, car handling is more intuitive with the T248. I could jump into any car and know what was going on through the force feedback. And of course we do have the better set of pedals with the T248 as well. With the G923 I needed to run a few more laps to adjust the car limits. Being weaker doesn't perfectly communicate this fully, making it easy to overdrive the vehicle until paring back the aggression, and I would still occasionally overstep the line while testing the car limits in later laps, as the force feedback simply wasn't giving me the strong responses telling me otherwise. Don't get me wrong, the G923 has some good features, and bear in mind this is for sim racing guys, and I am doing back-to-back testing between this and the T248. If this is your only driving wheel, then it's going to be fine and you will learn to work within its limits. But as I said, we are doing a comparison, and it's a comparison in sim racing, and that's where force feedback really makes a difference. While looking at kind of arcade games, if I was covering that, then it wouldn't really matter. To be honest, the G923 or T248 would be absolutely fine because those games are more forgiving with their physics. So yeah, I do understand the context of this testing. And of course, don't forget True Force, a really good feature, exclusive to the G923. And the leather-bound steering wheel, I haven't mentioned that yet, but it does feel a whole lot nicer, more like a real steering wheel than the plastic T248 rim, which feels kind of like a toy really. And the lower friction of the G923 is much nicer than the T248. So yeah, there are some things where I do like the G923, but you know, when it came down to it, we did have to pick a winner. And choosing between the two, it was all about which gave me the most confidence on the track, the ability of the force feedback to understand the car, and the Thrustmaster was doing a better job at that, simply. And there you have it, it's out there. That's my verdict for the Logitech G923 versus the Thrustmaster T248. If your budget is set to £300, then the Thrustmaster T248 is the better performer for sim racing. And that's what we're talking about, price to performance at £300. The T248 outperforms the G923 at £300. If you can pick up a used G923 or in a good sale at some point, and it's less than the T248, then that can change things. You know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the G923. Fundamentally, it's a decent entry-level performer. It's a testament to its remarkable longevity over the years. It's a popular wheelbase, and it is very reliable, it's robust, and does a decent enough job, guys, so there's nothing wrong with it. But remember, you know, the key is price to performance, and that's the basis of my results. Okay, well, that's your lots for this one. Please do drop your comments below the video, particularly if you have used both of these, because, you know, it's good to share your opinion, and you may not agree with me, which is absolutely fine. Well, there you go, guys. Let's end it now, and it only remains for me to say thank you very much for watching. I hope you found something useful here, and I'll be back soon with something new. Until next time, happy simming, and bye-bye.